What's the most important lesson life has taught you so far?
It's hard to give you a single answer, Richard,
Yes.
but based on, I guess, my life history, the likes of resilience, patience, and positivity. They are three key, I guess, learnings that have served me well or helped me get through my 73 years.
Good one in there, patience. I've learned that as well. Uh, if you could share one piece of wisdom, what would change someone's life? What would it be?
I guess if you're talking to a younger person who hasn't reached my age group, there's two quite contrasting things I would say. And the first would be to enjoy life, make the
Yeah,
most of opportunities that are presented to you, and just do that. Enjoy life as best you can. The second part is the flip side, which is a harsh learning for a lot of people in my generation, and that is to ensure that you save smartly and wisely. I guess in our
yes,
day, Richard, we didn't have the likes of KiwiSaver.
yeah,
And I think it's a wonderful tool for young people to make the most of and to get into good habits of putting aside money for whether it's their first home or their retirement. Because a lot of people in my demographic simply didn't
yes,
save enough and for
yeah,
their retirement to ensure that they had a comfortable retirement. So that's a harsh lesson, but it's a
yes.
very important lesson to younger people.
Yeah, I'm on board with you on that one, most definitely. So, what's the biggest misconception people have about aging then?
I guess people look at aging in so many different ways. Everyone has a
Yeah,
different take on it. And
yeah,
I mean, we have to accept we get old, we die,
yes, yes,
but
unfortunately.
we are living a whole lot longer than our parents did, for example. And the life expectancy now is like 80 plus, or certainly over the 80 mark.
Yes.
So, ageism, that from that perspective, enjoy your older times. And I'll come back to that. I'm sure you'll ask me questions about that advice that I would give to older people. But certainly, I'm enjoying my, if you have old fashioned terms of retiring at 65, so I'm 8 years past that. I've enjoyed just about all of those 8 years, loving
Yep,
it.
yep. I understand exactly where you're coming from. I'm in my late 60s. I'm 68, so I'm catching up,
You're a
but
young
I
buck,
understand
Richard. You're a
exactly.
young buck.
Yeah, I'm still a young buck. Yeah, absolutely. I've still got some time on my side.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Ian, oh, I'm already calling you Ian. So your age at the moment
Is 73.
is 73. Fantastic. So, Ian, what kind of work did you do during your career briefly?
I've done quite a lot in my career, Richard. I started off, my first, I guess, real job was in the travel industry. And I worked for what was then New Zealand's largest travel company called Atlantic and Pacific Travel. And you might
Yeah, I
remember
did
someone
see
called
that.
Selwyn Toogood. I used to work quite
Yes,
closely with Selwyn Toogood
yes.
in that company. And I was their New Zealand sales manager for 4 or 5 years at a pretty young
Yes.
age, I would say. And that was fantastic. And then I made a bizarre decision, because I could, I suppose, to get right out of travel, even though I was doing well, and to get into the food business. So I
Right.
opened New Zealand's first delicatessen restaurant in Parnell in 1981. And it was a brand new concept in this country. So it was all
Yes.
about changing people's eating habits of the time, because in my travel job I used to eat out a lot, and I put on a truckload of weight, I can promise you. So the style of food we served was much lighter and healthier
Yes.
and better for people. And then we had a delicatessen downstairs. And because we were in Parnell, that was where all the ad agents were in those days. And
Yes.
then the catering
Yes.
side just morphed naturally because the ad agents asked us to cater for various functions. So for 15 years, so I was a long survivor in the food industry in those days. You didn't have many businesses lasting that long. So I did 15 or 16 years there. And the only reason I got out was because a
Yes.
friend of mine asked me to join him in pitching for certain corporate hospitality rights. And
Okay.
his neighbor was a guy called Ian Robson, who was the first CEO of the Warriors. And they were just having a
Yes.
over the fence chat. And he said, "Oh, I need someone to do our corporate hospitality." And Steve contacted me because he knew I had the food understanding or expertise. If you want to go to the next stage, he said, "Hey, we've got this
Yes.
opportunity. Are you in? We've got
Yes.
24 hours to make a decision." So we pitched for that. We got that business. And so for the next, what was it, 10 or 15 years, I worked in corporate hospitality. And
Okay.
initially as a
This,
general manager in charge of food, and then became the managing director of a couple of companies. And we managed to pick up all the major contracts, New Zealand Rugby Union. We did huge, huge events like the Lions Tour in 2005, where, for example, one night
okay.
we were serving 17,400 people dinner,
Wow.
which was quite a lot. I did a couple of
Yes.
America's Cups in Auckland, which were big projects. I did a very
Yep,
big
I
one
saw
in
that.
Melbourne. Yeah, big one in Melbourne for the Commonwealth Games in 2006, looking after
Oh,
the hospitality
fantastic.
for the main sponsor. So I did that for
Yes.
a long period of time. And then
Oh,
I
fantastic.
had the hiccup in my life, which was quite major, where a commercial fraud type situation caused us to
Okay.
close down a company and me to lose personally, or my wife and I, over $600,000, which is a lot of money.
Oh, wow.
And for the next
Oh,
5 or 6 years, I looked after National Bank and then ANZ and New Zealand Cricket's
yes.
international functions at games around the country for about 10 years. That was a lot of fun because I'm a cricket tragic.
Yes.
I worked as the New Zealand catering manager during the Cricket World Cup in
What?
2015. And then I was struggling to find, real work, Richard. And I had
Yes.
thought I've got the skills and experience. I've built up a lot of those in management. I've been involved with 3 startups.
Yes.
I'll find a job, no worries.
Yes.
But I
Yes.
struggled. I really struggled. And after quite a
And do you
few
think that was
years,
due to a bit of age? Do you think it was
bit
age
of what.
related?
I
You
think
struggling
so.
to
And
find a
I
job?
think in those days, and you mentioned the word ageism before,
Yes.
ageism was rife in the employment world
Yes.
then. And you had young
Yep.
recruiters, and if you were over a certain age, you were in essence told you were too qualified or underqualified.
Yep.
It was sort of one or t'other, if you know what I mean.
Yes. Yes.
And I
Yes.
I sort of felt, hey, there are others in the same boat as me of my age group who are struggling to find
Yep.
work. Why don't I set up a platform to assist people? In those days, I started off over 60 and came down to 55 and then to 50, who like me are struggling to
Right.
find work. And I had
Yep.
no HR or recruitment experience, but I thought I'm just going to do it. So with the help of some
Yes.
friends and uh, I set up Seniors at Work, and 6 years
Yes.
later, I'm still an advocate and trying to help people who are aged 50 and above trying to find work. So that was a long
Absolutely.
answer to your very good
No,
question. Yeah.
no, it's absolutely fantastic. It just sort of gives it a little bit of background to where you come from. I think that seniors website and what you do is fantastic. It's absolutely wonderful. It's
Oh,
wonderful what you do. So,
it's
what did
very
your
humbling.
career?
Very humbling. Yeah.
It would be. I can totally understand that. So, what did your career teach you about success or happiness then, based on what you've told me?
Yeah, I was. I guess again, it's a matter of believing in yourself and looking at your skill set and whatever expertise that you have or don't have.
Yes. Yeah.
And as I said, and if you look at me to go from travel to hands-on food to corporate hospitality to a
Yes.
recruitment platform,
Yes.
um, a couple of those I knew nothing about. I knew nothing about
Yep.
food when I went into
Yep.
food. I just crazily at the age of 29 thought I'm going to do this, right?
Yes.
I'd never even worked as a kitchen hand or a waiter.
Oh, fantastic.
But I did about 3 or 4 months research with some friends, and we'd
Yes.
go around with a notebook and look at there were only about 2 delis in Auckland. And one would go in and have a look, and the other would have the notebook outside and would write down what equipment they had. So I went into that with no experience. And I went into seniors work with no experience as well.
Yes.
And I think if you believe in yourself and you believe strongly about something and you're passionate,
Yep. Yes.
you can't do everything. I can't be a rocket
No.
scientist.
No. I understand.
And there's a lot of IT stuff that I will away from, but you can have a crack at things. And I think, positivity, patience, they're
Yes.
important P
Yeah.
words. They're the right sort of
Absolutely.
P
So,
words.
no, I totally get it. So just in terms of your life, what changed your perspective? Was there a particular moment that made you go, "Ding, this is what I've got to do"? Was it what made you take that opportunity? Desperation, the need for money, or
Yeah, well, I think, I'll be honest, I didn't save enough. So, that's why I
yes,
preach, if you like, the importance of saving. And I look at our 3 children, they have already, and they're just in their 30s, or one is just 40,
yes,
they have saved well. They've made the most of
great,
KiwiSaver. They put more than they had
great,
to easily
yep,
to ensure that they have that fund behind them. So, that was a learning. And the other learning is just, that resilience and just don't give up.
yep, yes,
And
yes,
it's easy to get down, if you know what I mean. But if you can remain positive
yes,
and persevere and be resilient, I'm not saying you will, but you
yes,
might well get through tough times. And I've been through tough times. So,
yep.
it served me well, having that positivity and patience.
Yeah, patience, waiting for the good times to return. And that sort of dovetails into a question I always have for the older generation. How do you manage motivation after 65 years of age? Because I've
Yeah.
noticed that motivation drops, Ian. Even though you might have still the nous, you've still got the physical ability, you've still got it all there, but somehow the motivation just seems to disappear, seems to melt away, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I can only speak for myself, right?
Yeah.
I am totally motivated at 73.
Yes.
I guess I like working, for example. So I don't work
Keeping
full time
busy.
now. I work 30 to 35 hours a week, and that's an important part of my mental stability and ability to cope. It's a very important part. I'm lucky because I work from home, and I don't just have seniors at work. I also assist 3 organizations with funding work.
Okay.
All of deadlines, but they are
Yes.
flex. Well, I can be flexible. I know, like two,
Yes.
three, 4 weeks in advance, I have to do this by such and such a date.
Yep.
So by working from home, I have the ability, and coming back to feeling good after you're 65. The mental side is important,
Yes.
right? So let's
Yes.
stick with that.
Yep.
Work
Yep.
is a huge thing for me. Reading is a
Yep.
huge thing for me. I do something called Simon Shuker every
Okay.
morning. Is the first thing I do. It's a little
Right.
word game, and it comes in a little book.
Yeah,
It's
yes, absolutely.
fantastic.
Simon Sugars.
It's
Like
like a crossword, but it's
like
easier.
crosswords, huh?
It's
Okay.
Yeah, and I do one of those every day
And
in
that
the morning.
just keeps the mind ticking over, doesn't it?
Well, that's what I tell myself, anyway. So if I tell
Then
myself that, then it's
it's
I'd like to think it's the right thing. It's probably totally wrong. No, it's
yes.
not. It can't be wrong. So
It's obviously working. So
I think
something's
that's
working.
important.
Put it that way.
I read a lot. Like, I watch a little bit of television. My
Yeah.
wife likes television more than I do. So we'll watch a bit together, and then I'll go to bed
Yes.
quite early and read. And I will
And
read
then
till I
read.
reread, if you know what I mean. You're falling asleep.
Yes.
So it could be
Yes.
15 minutes. It could be socializing with other people is an
Yes.
important part of the mental side. Then you come to the physical
Yeah.
side, and I think, again, I feel very positive about that. I'm a walker, so I
Yes.
walk 3 to 5 times a week for about 50 minutes to an hour. I walk slowly. I don't walk super fast because I can't. but I can walk reasonably fast. And I think that walking side is very, very important. As I've hit the 70s,
Yes.
I don't read too much about, what you should and shouldn't do, but I have started planking. I plank. I have a little routine every morning.
Wow.
And I've started doing weights. They're only 4 kilos, but I've got two dumbbells or whatever they're called. And because you lose your muscle. So I don't do things overboard. I believe a little bit will help, if you know what I mean. So
Yes,
I do
yes,
the physical side,
yes.
and then eating, having a food background. I make sure we eat well, we eat balanced.
Yes,
We don't have
healthy.
to spend $1 zillion a week because I
Yes.
know how to plan things like what to buy.
Yeah.
But on the other side, I do enjoy a glass or two of wine every night, and whether that's good or bad for me, some will say it's probably a little bit bad, but it's important you do some positive things too.
Yep.
And my
Yeah.
one naughty thing, Richard, is
Yes. Tell
I,
me.
I like Contro. So if I can have a half a shot of Contro every few days, notice in my 70s physically,
Yes.
you're starting to get your aches and pains and little issues. Like I had a shoulder issue. It
Yes.
took me about 4 months to get rid of. And
Yes.
you just have to accept that. I mean,
Yes.
we're $1 million man yet.
No.
And it may change with
No.
medicine and drugs, but your body does slow down a little
Yes,
bit.
it
Some people
does.
say in
It
their
does.
60s, didn't happen for me. It's happening
Yes.
in little bits in the 70s, but
Yes.
you
Yep.
manage it as best you can.
Yep.
And going back to that word, you stay positive.
Yep. Oh, that's a fantastic response here, particularly around the muscle atrophy. When the
Yes.
muscle slowly starts breaking down, and unless you continue to use it and walking and using weights and that sort of thing, you'll lose it. The old saying,
You lose weight.
use it or lose it. You will
Yeah.
over time. And you know what's ironic? I mean, I'm not at your age yet, but I'm getting there. But somehow I'm more lucid, I'm more aware, I'm more in the space at my
Nice.
age now than what I was 10 years ago or 15, 20
Fantastic.
years ago. It's crazy, isn't it? I'm happier, I'm more at ease with life too. And I hope that's the case with everybody else that gets beyond 65 and 80 and 90.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Ian, is there something you wish you had have done differently in life, though? If you look back on it now, I mean, and what did it teach you?
I don't have any real regrets because I am such a positive soul.
Yeah,
I could have made certain. Look, if I was honest, I would have saved better. Right? That's a good.
yep. Number
I
one rule.
Yeah, but I could have made different business decisions over the years. Like, for example, after the Lions tour in 2005, I had the opportunity. I was invited to go in this direction with these people or that
Yes.
direction with those people.
Okay.
I chose option 2. Was that the right one as things transpired? I'm not sure. If I'd chosen option 1, would I be in a different situation now? Quite likely.
Yes.
But, it is what it is. And
Yes.
you can't, I think it's a futile exercise regretting everything. You know what I mean? Because if it is what it
Well,
is, I
yes.
think you look at the now and the future. If yourself in the past,
Yes.
you're not going to be a positive, happy person because if we're all honest with ourselves, if we look in hindsight, there are so many things that perhaps you would do differently. But what's the point?
Yes. Because you can't change mine. It was going to be my question. Do you think regrets are useful or should we let them go?
Yeah, good question. Some people will
And
never let them go. I let them go.
yeah,
I've
you've got to.
It helped me get through the worst 2 or 3 years.
Yes.
That by letting go and I knew I had to be resilient, but then being positive and patient.
Yes. I understand. So therefore, what advice would you give to someone to avoid the regrets they had? I choose a particular path. You live to regret the other path. What's the point? Because you can't change anything, can you?
Well, I'd say exactly that. What's the point?
Yeah.
If you go down a path, be positive, aggressive, and make
Yes.
the most of it and hopefully enjoy it. And
Yes.
if it's not working out, if you can,
Yes.
I guess, get out in time,
Yeah.
do that. If that
Do that.
opportunity
Yeah.
exists, otherwise, you just got to persevere and see it through
Yeah.
and look at the next opportunity, and there will be
Yeah.
another opportunity.
Yes. And you'll make those opportunities as well, depending on how positive you are about it.
Yeah,
Because the people I talk to now, the older folk, some of them they almost drown themselves in regret. They wish I had have done this or that, or my
yeah.
children had have been this or that, or gone there. And I mean, as I say, you can't change it. You've got to just move on and enjoy your life as it is. Anyway, on a
Well,
lighter note,
absolutely, yeah.
how did you meet your life partner?
Oh, wow.
An interesting story?
I wasn't expecting that question, Richard, but you didn't put that on your sheet here.
No.
At that stage, I had my delicatessen restaurant catering business in Parnell,
Yes.
Auckland. Sally, my wife, had just trained as a primary school teacher, had done a year of teaching and hated it.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Okay.
Ironically, she's gone back to teaching and is one of the most amazing teachers you could ever possibly and I'm a little bit older than her, a little bit.
Yes.
She must have been about 20 at the time, and
Yes.
in desperation, because her parents told her she needed to get work if she wasn't going to go back to teaching, she
Yes.
applied for a job with us at Fraser's place as a kitchen hand.
Oh.
And a very qualified kitchen hand, being a primary school
Yes.
teacher.
Yes.
And bizarrely,
Yes.
it must have been those days you put a little ad in the New Zealand Herald,
Yes.
and you get half a dozen people applying. We would have had 40 people rock on up, because you
Wow.
didn't book an appointment. You just rocked on up, joined the queue.
Yes, correct.
and
Yes.
Normally, I would interview them all, but there were so many that my main chef to interview, so we compared notes, and I had a short
Yes.
list of two, and she had a short list of one, which included Sally. And so we
Right.
got together, and I said, well, I didn't see this lady, but you're the main. If she's the right person, we'll go with your choice as opposed to my choices. So I won't say I was overruled, Richard, but the head chef rightly got her way, and Sally joined us. And because we were a business that we trained to do everything, so
Yes.
everyone, although Sally came on as a kitchen hand, we trained her to
Yes.
work in the deli.
Yes.
We trained her to work as a waitress upstairs. We had an upstairs restaurant. And so she
Yes.
did everything, and she was outstanding. And we
And
became partners. Yeah,
just that was it. It all worked out at the end.
it all
So-
worked out in the kitchen. Yeah,
In the kitchen. So I suppose it dovetails nicely into the next question. What's the secret of a lasting relationship?
yeah. That I think.
Okay, we're getting a bit personal now. I understand that.
Yeah, you
but
are. Yeah, deep and personal.
it's good stuff, this.
I think the secret is to be with your soulmate and to be on the same page. I mean, you can talk about, passionate love and all that, and that's fantastic.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, for a lasting relationship, some of the passion goes up and down, or
Yes.
whatever.
Yes.
But if you
Yep.
can have your partner as your soulmate and someone that whose company you enjoy, you look forward to that person's company. You look forward to them coming home from work and having a glass of wine with, and then in my case, cooking dinner and
Yes.
having dinner,
Yes.
which all sound very mundane, repetitive things. But if you still
it's
look
not.
forward to that with your soulmate, and if you can travel a little bit here and there, and you've got to be on the same page, and you've got to have some. You can be different personalities, of course,
Yes.
but you've got to have similar. We like the same food, we like the same wine, sort of thing. We like the same places to travel. We like the same sort of books. It works well. That would be
It does.
soulmate.
No.
Same page.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I totally understand it. Totally get it. I'd love to meet Sally one day. She sounds like such a nice person.
Oh, she's lovely. She's truly lovely. Yeah.
So, if you were to give anybody some advice struggling in their marriage today, some pointers, some quick pointers.
Yeah. Well, I'm no marriage guidance counsellor. I would say every relationship goes through its ups and downs. We do. Ours has, no question of that.
I agree.
But I think if you can take a step back and be patient and positive. I seem to be using those words a lot, don't I?
Yes, yes,
It will come right. And if it doesn't come right, it's wrong. But you might have to work through those not so good
yeah,
parts for days or even weeks. And then inevitably, one of the two of you
yes.
will want to not reconcile, that's not the right word, but want to get close again. And Sally's
Yes.
better at it than me. I'll store it up and say, "Oh, I'm grumpy about this. I'm not happy." She's the lovely one that will come up and give me a hug, and then all the bad stuff goes away just like that.
She'll break.
'Cause we're
She'll
soulmates.
she'll break the ice first. In other
Yeah,
words.
she's better at it than me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So I mean, there's a lesson in there, isn't there? Don't hang on to it. Don't hang on to the anger. Get
no,
it out. Talk about it.
yeah,
Get
absolutely,
together.
yeah.
Sit down.
Get
Have
it
a
out.
wine. Get it out there. Otherwise, it just festers, doesn't it? Doesn't do anybody
Exactly.
any good. Yeah,
And quite often,
understand
so
totally.
with something pathetic or little,
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, yeah,
you can
100%.
work your way through that with ease.
Yes, you can. Absolutely. Uh, just now, dovetailing out of that, what's the one health habit you wish you started earlier? Getting back to our age and all those sorts of things. Is there anything you
Yeah,
wish you had have started earlier?
yeah, and there is one, Richard, and that is cycling. I've never, as a kid, I had a bike. I used to bike all the time,
Yes,
right? And
yes.
then in my adult days, I didn't have a bike. I started walking, but I ruptured my quads
Oh,
20 years ago, and I have a
okay.
knee issue at the moment. And as my lovely GP said, the best thing is swimming or cycling.
Or
So I
cycling.
want to
Yep.
either get an exercycle or get a bike because I know
Yes.
that it's the best thing to help with my current knee issue. And so, yeah,
Yep.
I've never really got into cycling. I've played a lot of
Okay.
sport. I played a lot of
So
sport
you,
as a kid, but I
so
never cycled. Yeah,
Oh no, just a quick aside. I'm a big runner. I've run all my life for the last
right.
55 odd years, competitively as well. But I've split my meniscus in my right knee
Oh,
in several places,
oh,
and I've been to a specialist, and I've now got bone on bone. And so he said, if you want to walk by the time you're 80, give up running. So I said, what can I do? He said, well, maybe low impact cycling. So I've done exactly what you're thinking of. Yeah, I've purchased an exercycle, and it's taken a while to get into it, but I
yeah.
hammer away at it. I start at 30 minutes, then I go to 40, then I go to 50 and 60, depending on how I feel on the particular days. I understand
Well
exactly
done.
where you're coming from because I know I'll never be able to run again, and it was a real passion
Yeah.
of mine. But I take it out on the exercycle now. I give the exercycle hell and go for it.
Oh,
So
maybe the exercise's the way to go for me too. Then, yeah.
I think so, very much so. So, Ian, what's the biggest myth then about aging you want to bust?
I guess the biggest myth is that you're going downhill and you're not going to enjoy your later years. I have no fear of dying at all. And I have
Yeah.
a simple mantra, I guess, Richard, that I
Yes.
want to, if I can retain my faculties and I can
Yep.
walk around the block, that I've always said that for the last 40 years. I've got to be able to walk around. If I can't walk around the block and that, then I will get miserable, I suppose. But
Yes. Yes.
I've got to keep not necessarily working on it, just doing what I'm doing. And there's no reason why I can't tick those two boxes off for many, many years would be my thinking. But again, look,
Yep.
just be positive, understand and accept that you are slowing down, right? You're slowing
Yes.
down physically,
Yes.
you're slowing down mentally, but you can do things about both. And if
Yes.
you do those things, and you're talking about the planking and the
Yeah.
weights, you're going to
Yes.
extend the happiness in your life for,
Yes.
could be a considerable, could be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years of more happiness
Yes.
and enjoyment if you do those
Oh,
things.
absolutely fantastic advice, Ian. And I think it comes down to physical. Keeping physical, keeping
Yes,
your health up.
absolutely.
That's the most important part. Otherwise, you just become reclusive. You just sit at home, you watch a telly, you don't get out and about and those sorts of things, do you? Oh, no, absolutely. So therefore, what advice would you give younger people about preventing health problems later in life?
Yeah, it's similar sort of advice. I mean, I look
Starting earlier.
Yeah, I look around in horror at. I've got to be careful what I say, but there are a lot of people who are a little bit obese, right? And
Yes.
I think there could well be good reasons for it, but generally there's no reason to be like that. I think
Yes.
if my advice is you can eat cheaply and well. It's not hard. You can find recipes. So make sure you eat well and that you do exercises and that you do,
Yes.
which could be simple as just walking around your local block every day, maybe twice a day. Even little bits are going to help you. Don't spend all day in front of a screen. Don't
Yeah.
spend all day playing games on your
Yes.
screen.
Yes.
Our age, Richard, I was lucky. I was brought up in the 50s and the 60s. It was a relatively simple life. You know what I mean?
Yep.
We did ride bikes. We did play
Yes.
games. We did go to the
Yes.
pools and swim lengths. We played with our friends, cowboys and Indians, or
Yes.
whatever the games were.
Yeah,
We had
absolutely.
I had a
Yes.
train set. I used to love that.
Yeah.
We're lucky. It was a much simpler
Yes.
life. I get so scared of social media, and I get so scared
Yes.
of screens, and I get so scared of people eating badly and not doing some
Yes.
physical exercise.
Yes.
It worries the hell out of me, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, that's once again fantastic advice for a young person because it's now been proven there is so much mental health and physical issues with the young
Yes.
people in the world today based on, tablets and sitting at home and on couch potatoes and all those sorts of things. And I'd add to that, start early. Don't think, oh, I'll start when I'm 50. Get into some physical activity in your early years if you can, and sort of build up to it because you get used to it then. It becomes a bit of a mantra. And then every day, when you get up, you're going to do 20 push-ups or whatever the case might be. So I'm totally with you on that. So looking at the same...
The other part of that
Sure.
is there has to be parenting responsibility. You know what I mean? I think some parents take it for granted that the school will do the parenting. And even when they're at home, they'll just give them a tablet or give them a phone or whatever. You'd like to think that if you choose to be a parent, you are invested in your children and you want to spend time with them. You read them books, for goodness sake.
Yes.
Read to them from the age of 7 days old. They'll be taking it in. Do things with them. Take them to the playground. You know what I mean? To interact with them. And when you're driving a car, that's a horse or that's a castle or whatever it might be. They'll take it in, and please, parents, be positive parents and invested parents. It's so important.
Oh, it's a big subject, that, isn't it? Yeah, and I've seen pictures of a 2-year-old in nappies walking around with a remote in their hand. They already know how to operate the TV. So you go. It is sad, and Mum leaves them to it because they're not in her way, and she gets on with whatever she wants to do. Interesting. So, in terms of for the younger person looking at the 30, 40-year-olds, looking at the financial side of life, financial wisdom, what's the smartest financial move for someone in their 30s or 40s you would suggest?
I guess at that stage, they have already made the decision whether they've gone through university or they've gone down a trade or they've done something totally different, like going down the sales track, and nothing wrong with that. 30s, 40s, I guess make the most of their work opportunities. You're young enough to change whatever career path you've been in. And then I go back to just make sure you put aside a few dollars for your comfortable retirement. But it's a fascinating age, your 30s and your 40s, because basically you're like the 20s and 30s of the old. You're young, And those are the
Yes.
years where you should be ideally earning a little bit,
Yep.
and you're making the most of that time. You might have a young family. So they should be the most wonderful years of your life in many ways. You've got enough money, you've got a roof over your head, you've got
Yes.
maybe a young family, you've got a wife or a partner or
Yes.
husband or whatever.
Yep.
Again, make the most of it, but at the same time, think of, and I look at our children, think of
What
opportunities you
they've done.
may want to change. And if you
So
do, then believe in it and go for it. Yeah.
yeah,
But don't forget your
absolutely. So
family. Never forget your kids if you've got a family and kids.
no, very important. So then, what's the biggest money mistake people make, and how can they avoid it if at all possible?
Yeah, well, I guess, yeah. That's a hard, I don't know if I can answer that one. I
There,
mean,
there, there-
are
there's
they,
lots of reasons, aren't there?
yeah. Well, I mean, most people have to work to some sort of a budget. So are they spending smartly? Um,
Yes.
then
Uh,
it comes down to, are they going to rent or are they going to buy a property if they can? And they've got to
yes.
do the numbers there. And if they
Yes.
somehow can buy, and quite often these days it's with parental assistance, that's good. But if they can't, they've got to manage their rent and all their other costs, and make sure they're earning, but still putting, with the Kiwi saver, putting aside something.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the biggest issue. It's probably the second biggest issue after exercise and fitness, etc., is
Yes.
preparing for retirement or later life. And I think
Yes.
that's one area, excuse me, that a lot of people tend to sort of misread. They get to 40,
Yep.
I'll start doing something when I'm 50. And when they get 50, I'll start doing something when I'm 60. And by then it's almost too
Yeah.
late. You almost need to start when you're 21, don't you? When you're really
Yeah.
young.
True.
Start putting something into KiwiSaver and leaving it there and just let it multiply over the years.
Absolutely.
So yeah, a deeper question. What matters most at the end of life and what doesn't? We're getting to that critical point. What is the most important thing in your life at that particular point in time, and what isn't? What is
So
it that you just couldn't care less about?
yeah. So Richard, you're coming towards the end of your days. Is that what you're saying, or at my
Yes,
age?
yeah. I think a lot of people. I started off by saying talking about motivation, and I think a lot of people start giving up at some point. And I'm now looking at when you frail, you feel that there is the end of life coming. But what matters most at that point in time? I know what matters for me, and that's family. And the people around you, and the people you love, and the people. And it's not necessarily 100 friends. It could be one friend or two friends, but basically it's the family that are the nucleus, around you at that particular point. And what doesn't matter, at that point is all the rah rah and the hoopla and all of that stuff. Correct?
I totally agree, and family
Yeah.
is so important. Let's say I've got 3 children, I've got 2 grandchildren, and another one on the way. I'm hoping that I can. The two I've got are 8 and 10, so I'd like to think I've been, in inverted commas, a nice popper with them. I'm
I'm sure
hoping
you have.
I'm hoping that our daughter Anna, who's here now from New York for a week with
Oh,
her husband,
fantastic.
is expecting her first baby in June. So I'm thinking, I'm doing the mental calculations, Richard. I'm thinking I'm 73. I'm probably not a hell of a lot of use in the first couple of years. That's where Sally comes in. But they're still in New York, but they might come back here. So by the time their baby is 5, I will be 78. Will I still be able to
Yes.
play with him as a useful and meaningful and fun popper? I hope so. But
Yes.
you're right, it's family.
Yes.
You know,
Yes, it is, isn't it?
as long as you've got enough money to live comfortably, not extravagantly, because you don't need
Yep.
to, but if you can live
Correct.
comfortably and you have got family who are not too far from you and
Yes.
who visit you, it's important. We brought,
Yes.
or Sally's mum came up from Blenheim with her husband 4 years ago, and she's now 86 or 7, so it must have been in
Okay.
the early 80s. Her children
Yes.
were all in Auckland, all 3 children. So it was the best thing possible for her to move up with her husband to Auckland, where
Oh,
her family
fantastic.
could visit her every week. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
Down in
Agreed.
Blenheim, we'd go down once or maybe twice at the most a year.
Yes.
But being in Auckland, we all go weekly, and we
Yes.
take them out and we do this and that. So family, if you're that age, if you can be
Yeah.
surrounded by even one of your family members, but if you've got 2 or 3 or 4, so much the better.
Yes.
It'll make so much difference towards enjoying those precious years.
I concur with you totally, Ian, because that's one reason why we're in the UK at the moment. Because I've got a daughter living here, and
Nice.
she's got we've got 2 grandchildren. She's got 2 kids, one little boy, one little girl. He's one, just turned 1, and the little girl's 4.5. I can't get enough of them. They're
Yeah.
just the
Oh,
most
that's
wonderful
lovely.
people,
Yeah.
and it's something that almost automatically comes out of you when you get to our age.
Yes.
There's an instinct there that you wrap your arms around them, you wrap everything around
Yeah.
them, and you're right, Ian. It doesn't cost anything.
No.
It's being present, I think, is the term, isn't it?
Yes.
It's being in
Yes,
their,
absolutely. Totally agree.
it's being in their lives, isn't it? It's being in
Yeah.
their lives. It's being present. It's being able to just help them with little things like get a drink of water or just show them what they can do. Those sorts of things. So, no, I'm loving the experience. Unfortunately, we have to go back to New Zealand at some
No,
stage,
stay longer,
which we
Richard.
will
Stay
do.
longer.
So, Ian, what's the one value you hope future generations never lose?
Value.
Yeah, because we're losing so
I'm a
much
bit of-
as a
Yeah. Either humility or positivity.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, humility is a big word, and I love people who are humble and they do things and they do positive things, but they're not going around in an extravagant way. They're just being
Yes.
humble, and it's
humble. Yep.
it's a word I like. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So that leads me to what does a life well lived mean to you? You often hear this quoted. People talk about, a life well lived. Somebody passes away and they say he lived a good life.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that actually means.
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh, you're asking deep questions now, Richard. A life well lived.
What we could do is we could always cut this one and have another one later on once you've done some homework here.
I'll be prepared for your questions then. Yeah. A life well lived. Look, again, one can only be personal and subjective.
Yes.
I look at myself. There are things that I could have done better, no question.
Yes.
And I'll give you
Yes.
a graphic example, which is not fantastic from my perspective, but
Yep.
it's history and it doesn't
Yes.
matter.
Yes.
I went through King's College in the top stream, right?
Okay.
But I was made to work pretty hard. I was always towards the bottom of the top stream. So I flew through school, got my A bursary with ease. Then I never settled at university. And, I started off with law and did this, and I've only done just over half a degree. That is a regret,
Yes.
which our children have got multiple degrees and all the rest,
Yes.
which is fantastic.
Okay.
So I have that regret. But my life, does that worry me? No, it doesn't.
No.
Because if I had a full and meaningful life, look, I've had ups and downs like a lot of
Yep.
us do.
Yes.
But I always focus on the ups, and I focus on the current, and I focus on the future. And I've been able to travel. I have children. I have grandchildren. I've been able to do some really important high-level work in different
Yes.
roles, and just about all the
Yep.
roles have been in management. I have done some good things in that respect. There's some things that didn't work out.
Yes.
But you put it all in a melting pot.
Yep.
Have I had a good life in my own personal view? Yeah, I have. I've enjoyed life.
Fantastic.
I'm still enjoying life. I've
Yes.
got another, I don't know, let's say 10 more years or whatever. I will
Yep.
make, as long as my body hangs in there and my
Yeah.
mind
Excuse
forms
me.
I'm trying, then I should enjoy the rest of my life. and
Yeah, no,
I'm very positive. I'm
yeah,
feeling very good.
yeah, absolutely, and great, well said. I think you used that word again, positive. You've probably used it about 10 times now. I'll go back and I'll count the number of
Oh
times you've
no,
said positive. But I think that's the mental aptitude you need to adopt, don't you? You need to stay
yep,
positive. You need to recognize the stage of life you're in, and
yep,
and don't regret it.
no,
Work with it. Work with it,
absolutely,
and look around you and just understand the space you're in, because it's a very different space. It feels different to me. It does anyway, and I'm sure it does for
yes,
you.
yeah, absolutely. You're so right.
Um, you're in a different time of your life, which is also very special, isn't it?
Yes,
And the
it's
kids,
all
we talked
special.
about the kids and that sort of thing. It's very special as well. So don't give up. And that motivation question around what do you do about motivation after 65? There's so much more you can still do in life. Just persevere, stay active, all those sorts of things. A couple of fun questions very quickly, Ian. What's the strangest job you've ever had?
Strangest job I've ever had. Um, I probably haven't had any really strange job. You could say doing dishes
Yeah,
in the
doing
restaurant
the
I had, because
dishes.
I took my turn as a dishwasher. Um, Running up, we had 23 steps, running up and down the steps because our restaurant was upstairs. That was
Okay.
weird, yeah, doing the dishes, cleaning toilets at corporate hospitality.
Yes.
Someone had to
Oh,
do it,
wow. Oh, yes. Somebody had to do
that
it.
wasn't
Yep.
always the
Yep.
nicest thing to do. But they weren't full-time roles, obviously, but they
No,
were
no, I
parts
understand.
of
Yeah.
roles
Yeah.
that I had to
Absolutely.
do. Yeah.
So, yeah, and you actually alluded to your guilty pleasure earlier on, but that was before we started discussing online. Remind me what your guilty pleasure is again?
Well, okay, I do enjoy wine, and I
Yes.
do drink a couple of glasses every night. My wife is better than me, Richard. She will quite often, being a primary school teacher, say, I won't have a drink on a Monday and I won't have a drink on a Tuesday and probably not on a Wednesday. And she mostly
Yes.
keeps to that, apart from the holidays. But I enjoy cooking because I've cooked, and then I'll have a glass of wine. And my bad, bad thing is that I do love Cointreau, which I think is the most
Yes.
amazing drink. So I love to have a half shot of Cointreau if I can
Yep.
before I, not every night, but as many
Before you
nights as I
finish
can.
for the
And I
day.
learned to use Cointreau way back in the early 80s when I was a
Yes.
caterer. And a very simple dessert was to serve strawberries in Cointreau. So you'd get a bottle of Cointreau and tip half
Yes.
of it in
Yes.
with the strawberries, and it was just a
Yes.
magical dessert. And so by doing that, someone must have told me it was a good idea, and I would have tried this Cointreau thing and thought, oh, this is all
Yep.
right. And I've always,
And it's
always
stuck.
loved Cointreau. And at
Uh,
my daughter's now husband's stag do, um, we went to a pub and everyone did rounds, and
yes.
my round was a round of Cointreau. And I
Oh,
was,
really? Okay.
along with Hayden's dad, I was the only, in inverted commas, older guy. The others would have been all in their early 30s, I guess.
Yes.
And out
Yes.
comes a round of Cointreaus. And they all looked at it, but they absolutely loved it. And they kept on talking
Yeah, they
about
would.
Cointreau right through
Yep.
to the wedding. And one of the guys shouted us a round of Cointreaus at the wedding. So
Oh,
Cointreau, I'm
fantastic.
doing a good plug for them, aren't I?
You are, aren't you? Absolutely fantastic. So, talking about Cointreau and the cooking you do and the food you love, and it's a bit of a cliche, I know, but if you had to have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
That's a good question. Oh,
Nobody springs to mind immediately.
well, no, yeah. I mean, the
And
obvious.
something, Ian, it could be with Sally.
It could be with Sally, yes, of
Yes.
course. I mean, the one I was going to say, but there'll be a lot of
Yes.
royalists that go. The late Queen, who gave
Yes.
so much to
Yeah.
mankind, whether you're a monarchist or a
Yeah.
republican, doesn't matter.
Yes.
I never met the Queen. I
Yep.
waved to her in 1960, whatever it was, when I was
That's as close as you got.
but that would be, I don't even know what her food habits were. But she would be someone, I mean, I've always looked up to and aspired and thought, wow, what a life. How can you do
Yeah.
that for so many years? Give and talk about being the epitome of
Yes.
giving. As
Yes.
I say, whether you're a Republican or a monarchist, it doesn't matter. She gave.
Yeah.
She gave so much. So let me nominate the late Queen. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
meet upstairs one day, and I'll get that
Who
off.
knows? And then you can serve her whatever it is that she likes.
Yeah,
I couldn't
exactly.
agree more. No, I couldn't agree with you more. And it's an interesting question and your answer with regards to the late Queen in terms of age. I mean, I don't think a 25-year-old or 30-year-old
No.
would have given the same answer. But, it's once again, it's the age thing, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
We're dating
so,
ourselves.
We're painting ourselves into a corner by the sounds of it, isn't
We
it?
are, we are.
Anything to finish off with? One thing that you probably want to say that, and I probably, I sort of refer more to the current older generation at the moment who are sort of, and we've alluded to it, sort of halfway there and, not really settled and wondering about age and that sort of thing. Anything to add?
I'll go back to the work that I do, advocating for people over 50
Yes.
who are struggling to find work. And my advice to them is the same. Be positive, be patient,
Yes.
be well prepared if you
Yes.
are applying for a job. Be resilient, and it will get better. We've gone through 2 really tough years in the last 2 years.
Oh,
I've got
incredibly
my
so.
fingers and toes crossed because a lot of the economists and the pundits are saying
Yep.
the tide is just turning.